In this video, I want to talk about how to help your children or anyone you love who's struggling with their faith. You know, a lot of times when parents hear their kids talk about struggling with their faith, or, maybe their child becomes an adolescent and they start saying things like, I'm not sure if God is real. I'm not sure if the Bible is real. It can cause a parent to really freak out. Like, we don't know what to do with that. And particularly at that stage, prior to adolescence or pre-adolescence, our children are in a developmental stage to just kind of follow everything that we do and the things that we teach. And of course, they rebel here and there, but for the most part, they're obeying. And we have a lot of influence on them. And then they become pre-adolescents or adolescents, and we feel like, oh my goodness, this came from nowhere. No, it didn't. If you know the development of a child, then you know that a child is not designed by God to follow you. A child is designed by God to follow God. And a child also is designed to develop, to have their own faith. They start out by watching you in your example to them of what spiritual living is. And your job as a parent is to transition them by not standing in the place of God, by sharing your testimony with them, by sharing your example with them. And unfortunately, a lot of parents don't know how to do that, or maybe we came to know Christ later on in life, maybe even like me, when my daughter actually left the home when she was already an adult. And so when these things happen, it can really expose the chinks in our own armor. And we have to own that. We have to be responsible for that. The chinks in our own armor can include things like having weak faith ourselves, or maybe we have an area of our faith that is weak, that God is raising to the surface for us to work on. Maybe we've stood in the place of idol with our children. We've taken care of things that our children were that God was sending our children to actually learn from. And so now that we don't have this influence over our children, we're freaked out because we realize, oh my goodness, I did not adequately prepare my child to experience consequences and to sort through those consequences with God. I fixed it for them. I stood in the way of God and what he was doing with them. Have I messed them up? Have I ruined their opportunity for faith and salvation? Or maybe God is exposing our own faith and whether or not we trust him to know and do what is good, to love our children more than we love our children, and to bring them into a place where they will know him, where they will love him, and where they will receive and commit to the covenant that he extends to them. And if we don't deal with these chinks in our own armor, we're going to mess things up, and we're going to mess it up big time. At whatever age our children are at, we need to respect that relationship that they have with God. We need to respect God's relationship with his own children who he put on loan to us. And so what we actually need to do is to pray to him and ask him, how do I stand in the authority that you've given me? Because I have messed some things up. We need to acknowledge the places that we mess things up. We need to acknowledge the fears that we have and the concerns that we have. We need to acknowledge that we don't know what's good. We don't know what he is raising in our children's lives. And I'll give you an example of this. I've told you before that my kids and I have prayed for certain people, fasted and prayed for certain people, and those people ended up getting COVID. And one of them ended up going to the hospital a few times for other things that God raised in their body. But every time that we've fasted and prayed for someone who was really straying and struggling and we were concerned about them, God sent something to bring them low. And so a lot of times as parents, when things start happening in our kids' lives, we start freaking out because we're like, what do I do? What do I do? I want to have power to be able to take this away from them and just make everything okay. Why? Is that how God treats us? Does he make everything okay? Or does he send us consequences so that we can be brought into position and so be saved? He knows what's good. We don't. The best thing that ever happened to me that God sent was to bring me to the brink of death so that I could finally stop thinking that I was God. Stop thinking that I knew what was good and then praying these honey-do lists of what God needed to do for me. And I'll tell you another good thing he did. He gave me a lot of those things on that honey-do list in order to bring me to that destruction. He gave me wealth. He gave me beauty. And I squandered them, and it was bringing me to my destruction because that's what I trusted in. I trusted in the wealth. I trusted in the beauty that only he gave me. And he did that in order that I would understand that I don't even know what's good in my own life. He gave me all those things and I didn't even know what to do with it. And to show me what actually matters, to show me that just by his spirit of peace, I can survive anything, just by his spirit of peace. I can survive anything and I can be happier in a terrible situation than I was ever in a situation that I thought was good, that I thought was secure. I never had peace when I had money. I never had fulfillment or love when I had beauty. Isn't that interesting? It's only by his spirit. It's only by his spirit that I have gained any of the things that I didn't even know I wanted. If you want to help someone such as your children who you love, your husband, a family member, your power is in, first of all, acknowledging what you're feeling and acknowledging your place. Your place. You are not God. It is not your job, nor is it your right to shove your faith down someone else's throat. Even a child who you think that you're parenting by doing that, you do not shove your faith down their throat. You share truth with them if you know it in the word, so you can say, well, the word says this. You can pray with them. You can share your testimony. And every single one of us has struggled in our faith. So we have a testimony of struggling in our faith. If you have a testimony of what God did to bring you into faith as you were struggling or being tested, then share that. But I want to tell you the important order to do that. Because if you do it of your own will, you're going to mess it up. You need to go to God and you need to lay yourself bare. And you need to deal with the chinks that are in your own armor so that they don't end up compelling you to try to control someone else's faith or to try to control your own faith, your own lack of faith, and sort through your issues through them. It's not fair and it's not right. The very first thing that you need to do is to go to him and sort through the chinks in your own armor and to ask him, Father, in this role that you've placed me in, this authority that you've given me as a parent, as a spouse, as a sister, whatever it is, what would you have me do? What is the position that you've placed me in here? What is the position that I should take? And I want you to remember that your position is always beneath God. It is never alongside him. It is beneath God as a servant. We are not equal to God. We are still being built by him. We need him. We are never going to be in a position of sovereignty over God. We need to take the right position. You can pray with your children. You can pray for your children. Fast for your children. Fast with your children. Have conversations with them. Share your testimony. But you can't build their faith for them, and you can't build your faith through them. People are going through testing right now. This is a period of testing between Passover and Pentecost. You see it when you read Leviticus 23. When you are observing these holy days, you understand what was going on with the holy days. God proved himself in Passover. And then there's this period between Passover and Pentecost where he says, when you enter the land that I'm going to give you and you reap its harvest. So you know that there is a period between Passover and that time that they entered that land. What was going on? What was going on during that time? They were wandering the wilderness and God was testing them. He was testing them at Meribah. He was testing them, with regard to being hungry. He was testing them with the manna, and some obeyed and some disobeyed, and he sent consequences. He sent results. He didn't say, oh no, I want to protect you from experiencing anything. No, he sent the consequences. That's why we do that with our children, in order to discipline them, because we love them and we want to make sure that they learn these things while we still have influence over them developmentally. That's why the word says that we work out our covenant through bearing children. Do we not end up understanding the heart of God as we're bearing children, understanding who we've been with him? If we didn't have that, how would we know? How would we know what he goes through? And it's part of our covenant to learn the heart of God and to become like him. During that period between God delivering the Israelites out of bondage, out of Egypt, and then bringing them into the promised land, there was a lot of testing. And that is the period that we're going through right now. People are being tested in their faith. I am, my family is. Many of you are sharing with me the various ways that you're being tested. So this might be a time when people you love and people over whom God has placed you in authority are going to experience challenges in their faith. Be careful that you do not step in the role of idol. Someone was with me the other day and they were, they were crying over the things that they gave up in order to be in ministry. And, my heart really went out to them, but I can't change that for them. That's between them and God. So know your bounds as well. If you feel that someone is spending more time than is right, than is correct, relenting to things to you that they need to bring to God, you need to let them know that. And you need to get out of that conversation because you're not God. You need to model good boundaries because whatever God has set us apart for, that's who we need to sort these things through with. I'm in a position where a lot of people try to set me up as an idol. They try to vent with me, even get me to change their circumstances. I can't do that. If I do that, I will be going against the commitment that I have made with God as a witness, as a shepherd to you, because that's no longer a shepherd, that's an idol. And I hope that that's an example to you as a parent, as a spouse, as a shepherd who's being built right now. You can't make things better for people. What God has sent, he has sent for a purpose. I was talking with someone last night who was telling me that their parent had what the world calls type 2 diabetes. And they had been seeing a doctor for many, many years. And the doctor just kept titrating the dose up and down and up and down, never even talking to this person about diet. Like, what are you eating? How's your exercise? Like, what, talking to them about lifestyle, basic lifestyle. And they ended up going and seeing another doctor. And that doctor did talk to them about those things. And he was able to get off of the medication and is living a very physically healthy life. And he was telling me he's happy and he's fulfilled. And we were sorting through something that he's sorting through right now, which is, where does God stand with the sciences? And one of the things that I was talking with him about and trying to help him to understand is that even that, which seems like a good thing, it is a good thing to live in temperance and moderation, to understand how to take care of your body. Of course, that's a good thing, but it's also a superficial solution to what was actually going on with this person. What is actually going on with this person? Because if you put a Band-Aid on something, it's going to show up in other areas. The sin in that person's life has been indulgence, self-centeredness. They've bounced around from many self-indulgent behaviors: adultery, addiction, what the world calls addiction, overeating sugar, caffeine. And now this person is indulging in counterfeit religion. Did the sin go anywhere? The sin didn't go anywhere. The sin continues to remain in that person. They're constantly looking for somewhere outside of themselves to fill up the inside, that place that God is supposed to occupy. And so now they're even in more of a dangerous situation. But what this person was telling me is that they're in the best situation they've ever been in. I see them happier than they've ever been. How could they possibly be? And they attribute this to changing superficial lifestyle changes and now counterfeit religion. Oh, they're in a good place. They're seeking spirituality. Did God lead them to the right place? Because what I see is that they are in delusion because they did not love truth, because they sought an idol to help them with something that an idol told them the condition is. That condition is not type 2 diabetes. That condition is spiritual, and it has resulted in sin. That spiritual condition has resulted in sin. Have you not seen people go from what the world calls addiction to being a zealot in some counterfeit Christian church? Do you think that in God's eyes, that being a zealot for counterfeit Christianity is better than addiction? I'm sorry, but I don't think so. That is so dangerous. Here's what I want to say to you. The consequences that God has given you in your life, when an idol steps in and starts telling someone what their condition is and implementing superficial lies, superficial solutions that are no solutions at all, but are lies, even though they might produce some pseudo results. Okay, so what happens? That person lives their best life here, but they lose eternal life because they didn't understand what God says in his word, which is all of your physical issues are a result of what he is doing in the spiritual. And if you return to him, he will heal you. He will minister to you. If you repent, he will restore you that you may serve him. But see, people look at these things and they say, see, he was healed and therefore he's praising God. No, he's not. He was supposedly healed by an idol and he's praising God. No, he's praising medicine. And there's no way that God led him to counterfeit Christianity. It's a lie. And when you, as parents, as spouses, step in and you take care of the things that God has sent in a person's life in order for them to receive from him and be ministered to by him, you prevent that person from being built, from first of all, being brought to a low enough position so that they actually return to God with their heart instead of their lips and receive his ministry and his building of them, and then he will lead them where he wants them to go. It's a darn shame, that story I was hearing yesterday. It is a darn shame, and it grieves me deeply because this is what's going on in the world. And so people are not even relating with God. They're not even having a relationship with him. You know why? Too many idols stepping in to change things for them so that they don't have to relate with him. They never have to be brought to that position that he's trying to bring them into. It's scary and it's dangerous. If you want to help the people you love, return to God. Get in your position. Know your position. Your position is not God. Your position is under God, and anyone he's placed in your care belongs to him, not you. They are on loan to you. So you need to return to him to find out how to walk in that authority. You can pray. You can fast. In fact, I recommend that you pray and fast. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.